What you are about to hear is real. Every single one of these stories was shared by a real person on Reddit, someone who, at some point, realized that the person in front of them was not who they seemed. Some of them got away, all of them are still haunted. Let us begin. Teenage girl in need of advice on how to handle this. Daughter here. I pulled up to a Starbucks and went to get out of my car, when a man who was clearly in his 60s or 70s said, in one of the most disturbing voices I have ever heard, "Peekaboo, I see you." I was immediately freaked out. I hurried into the Starbucks, and as I was ordering, he came up behind me and stuck his finger between my shoulders, then asked me to play checkers. I looked at the worker, and she looked at me, that silent look of, "Help, I'm a kid and I do not know what to do." He then made someone get up from their seat and started eating donut holes with a fork out of a container. He began shuffling cards and talking to himself. He continued moving around the store, harassing me and other customers. I went to the bathroom area to hide while waiting for my drink. He got up from where he was sitting and followed me there, waving at me and asking me to come closer. I had to walk past him to get back to the front of the store. I rushed past him, but he grabbed my tank top. I was terrified. When I finally left and got back into my car, he had followed me to the parking lot too. He then started yelling at people through their car windows, chanting something, and chasing people around the lot. I am confused about why everyone who witnessed this did not do anything to help. It is things like this that make it feel unsafe for women to go out alone. One person did nothing while everyone watched. The next story happened at work, alone, and the part that did not make sense only became clear afterward. I cannot shake the feeling something bad could have happened to me with a customer who was a favorite in our store. I was alone at work the other night when a regular customer came walking in through our back door. I thought it was a little strange, but let it go and helped him with his purchase. We chatted. He's a regular I get along with. He went to leave and asked if I wanted him to make sure the back door he came through was properly closed. I said yes, please. I heard the door open and slam loudly, twice, as if he was making sure I knew he had closed it tight. I called my boyfriend and put him on speaker, letting him know I would be a little later than usual because of the last-minute customer. We were talking when all of a sudden the same customer I thought had left came around the corner from our back room to ask me a trivial follow-up question. I thought he had left. I have no idea what he was doing back there between the two door slams I heard and the moment I saw him again. He must have been standing in the back room the entire time, just standing there, for whatever reason. After that, I could not shake the feeling that something bad could have happened to me. 80% of my brain was telling me I was overreacting, that this man would not do anything to me. But the other 20% just could not stop wondering what that was all about. Update: I told my boss the next day. She had me go pick up a doorbell so our delivery drivers could use it, and the back door is staying locked from now on. The part I still cannot get past is the pretending to slam the door closed, and what might have happened if I had just walked into the back room on my own. 2 door slams, 1 person still inside. The next story involves a neighbor and a feeling that built quietly over weeks until it could not be ignored. Something about this guy in my apartment building does not feel right. I live in a pretty average apartment complex. 3 floors, quiet, nothing fancy. I have been here a little over a year and most people keep to themselves. A few weeks ago, a new guy moved into the unit across from mine. Early 30s maybe. Thin, buzz cut, always wearing the same gray hoodie even when it was warm out. I didn't think much of him at first. He leaves his door open sometimes, not wide open, just cracked, enough to see the light inside. No noise, no television, no talking. I have never seen anyone go in or out, except him. One night, I was taking the trash out around 1 in the morning, and he was just standing in the hallway, not doing anything, no phone, just standing by his door, staring at the floor like he was waiting for something. I said, "Hey." He didn't even flinch, just kept standing there like I was not there. I walked past him and felt my skin crawl, that specific feeling when you know someone is watching you, even when they are not looking at you. Last night, I woke up around 3 in the morning because I heard soft knocking, not loud, just a few slow, spaced-out taps. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. I stood for a moment and started to turn away, then heard it again. This time, it sounded like it was coming from somewhere in the hallway. Slow, spaced-out knocks, like someone testing how quiet they could be. I opened the door and looked out. Nothing. But his door was open again, a little wider than usual. I couldn't see anything inside, just darkness. I didn't go any closer. I closed my door, locked everything, and sat in my living room with the lights on for an hour before going back to bed. He didn't leave his apartment at all the next day. I know because I stayed home from work. No movement, no sound, just the door shut tight. Maybe I am being paranoid, but something about him feels wrong, like he is pretending to be normal, but does not actually know how. Should I say something to management, to the police? It feels like nothing and everything at the same time. That feeling in your chest that will not go away. The next story proves you should always listen to it, especially on a dark street, with a dead phone and someone running behind you. To the guy in the blue hoodie, let's not meet again. Just yesterday I went to a friend's house for a small get-together. It went great. We laughed a lot, had fun, and left around 9 in the evening. I had ridden my bike there, but when it was time to leave, I realized my phone was completely dead. No navigation, no flashlight, just me and my bike in the dark. I started zigzagging through unfamiliar streets, trying to find my way home. At one point, I stopped at a crosswalk to catch my breath. That is when I noticed someone standing behind a tree, wearing a blue hoodie. He raised his arm and waved at me. It was strange. I did not wave back. I got on my bike and kept moving. A few streets later, I suddenly heard heavy breathing and fast footsteps directly behind me. I turned around. It was the guy in the blue hoodie, a man running straight at me. I pedaled as fast as I could. As I was pulling away, I heard him yell a curse at me. I made it to a restaurant, hoping to duck inside. It was already closed. I looked back. He was still following me. I kept pedaling, heart pounding, until I reached an auto parts store near my house. When I finally glanced back again, he was gone. For a second I thought it was over, until I heard a voice near the front of the store. A male voice, laughing maniacally. The laugh faded into the distance, like he was walking away. I made it home, locked everything, and tried to sleep, but I could not. The paranoia would not let me. To the guy in the blue hoodie with the crazy laugh, let us never meet again. Running in the dark, heart pounding, with no way to call for help. The next one started with a simple good morning in a hotel lobby, and spiraled from there. Careful what you say at breakfast in a hotel. When I was around 22 years old, I had a frightening encounter while staying at a hotel for a work trip. I was working for a traveling photography group that took church directory photos. I was staying at a hotel in Harlan, Iowa, along with 3 other photographers. One morning, I went down to breakfast and was watching the television in the hotel breakfast area. A man nearby looked at me, and I said, "Good morning," the way you do with a stranger you never expect to see again. He said it back. Pleasant, completely normal. He mentioned he was there with his team for a construction job. As I was leaving, I said something casual like, "Have a good one, see you later." He mentioned we could hang out later. I did not think anything of it, and brushed it off with a vague "yeah, maybe." Later that day, I decided to take a nap before work. While lying in my room, I kept receiving calls to the room phone. I never got calls like that, so I picked up. Every time, silence, no one on the line. After a few times, I took the receiver off the hook, so it would stop. When I left my room to go to work, he was standing in the hallway. I waved, still not thinking anything of it. He asked where I was going. I said work, and left with a colleague. That night during a thunderstorm, our group stood by the hotel lobby, watching lightning. Tornado warnings, everyone keeping tabs on each other. When I finally went back to my room, I heard a knock at the door. I cracked it open. It was him. He brought up that I had said we could hang out, and I told him I was too tired after working all day. I shut the door. Later, I cannot remember if it was the same night or the next morning, he knocked again. I pretended to be out or asleep and called my mom. Then I had a feeling. I whispered to her, "Mom, hold on a second. I need to check something." I tiptoed as quietly as I could to my room door. I looked through the peephole. He was there, standing in the hallway. I watched him slowly turn his head toward my door, as if he was listening for something. Then he moved to the side, into the small indentation in the wall, that most hotel hallways have between room doors. He kept leaning his head around the edge of that wall, like he thought he was hiding, listening for any sound from inside my room. I walked to the far side of my room, as quietly as I could, and whispered to my mom about what I was seeing. I called the front desk. My colleague also complained about the strange calls she had received. We were given new rooms. The construction group manager was told about one of his workers, and that man was instructed to stay away from us. After that, I became much more careful about who I talked to, and what I casually say to strangers. A simple "see you later" that turned into something terrifying. The next one began with something even more ordinary, and the woman who lived it only understood what was happening when it was almost too late. I am so glad I stayed in the car that night. This happened about a year ago, and it still haunts me. English is not my first language, so I hope this comes across clearly. I was visiting some friends. It was the middle of the week, but I was on vacation, so I stayed out late. Around 1 or 1:30 in the morning, I got in my car to head home, about a 30-minute drive. I live in a small German town on a main street. At night during the week, there is almost no traffic, maybe 1 or 2 cars passing every now and then. Coming from the direction I was driving, you can see down the road for about 600 to 700 meters. I rent a parking spot in an underground garage shared with 10 other tenants. The garage entrance is tucked beside the building and somewhat hidden by the surrounding houses, not really visible unless you are standing right in front of it. I pulled into the driveway, stopped to open the garage door with my remote, and backed into my parking spot, which faces the entrance. I left the engine running while I rummaged in the center console for something. I cannot even remember what. When I looked up, there was a man standing there. A man maybe 45 years old, about 3 meters in front of my car, inside the garage, just staring at me. I was instantly terrified. Reflexively, I hit the lock button on my car. He shouted that I should give him my phone. He said his car had broken down and he needed to make a call. But I had driven the entire road home and had seen nothing, no broken down car, no hazard lights, nothing pulled over on the side. I was frozen in shock. He seemed to notice my confusion and added that the breakdown had happened in the next town over, which is about an hour's walk away. He told me again to give him my phone, louder now, more aggressive. That is when I noticed what he was wearing, knee-length checkered shorts, no shirt. It was not freezing outside, but it was definitely not warm enough to be standing around half naked. I yelled through my closed window that I could not help him and asked him to leave. He said, "You do not need to be afraid of me, just come and give me your phone." I told him I was sorry, but no, and that he needed to go. He stared for a moment, then he walked out of the garage angrily. I stayed in my car until the garage door was completely closed. Only then did I turn off the engine. I grabbed my keys and sprinted to the door leading into the apartment hallway. It is a heavy door that jams sometimes. Thankfully, not that night. Once inside, I ran to my ground floor apartment, locked everything, shut all the blinds, and sat there for several minutes before I could even call a friend. I debated calling the police, but did not. I told myself they had more urgent matters since the man had not actually done anything to me. Looking back, I know that was a mistake. He easily could have asked me to call someone from outside the garage. He could have knocked on any door in the area. Instead, he followed a young woman into an underground parking structure at 1:30 in the morning, half naked, in the dark. I have never seen him again, but ever since that night, I hate parking there. I never get out of my car until the garage door is fully closed, and even then, I am always on edge. I am so grateful I kept the engine running. I am so grateful my parking spot faces the entrance so I had a clear view. I am so grateful the door did not jam. And more than anything, I am so grateful I had not gotten out of the car earlier. I do not want to imagine what could have happened if I had. She stayed in the car. Her instinct saved her. The next one involves a job offer, a man with a gun license, and a company that did not exist. Man tried to lure me to a place that did not exist. When I was around 25, I was working at a small dessert restaurant. It was in a pretty hidden, quiet location, so I was often there alone in the mornings. One day, a man walked in, and I recognized him from the night before. He had been there with his wife and grown children, the only other time I had seen him. This time he was alone, and he started talking to me. It seemed like normal small talk at first, but he kept commenting that I looked 19 and saying he could help me, that he could get me into a job that paid $7 more per hour than what I was making. I got excited and asked for the name of the company. He kept talking around it, never giving me the name, always steering the conversation somewhere else. He then started talking about how he had affairs and that his wife knew and was fine with it. He mentioned that one of the women he had an affair with was 19 at the time, and that today she was happily married and apparently still thanked him for everything he had taught her. I was getting increasingly uncomfortable. He would not stop. A car drove by on that quiet road, and the driver waved at him through the glass doors. He used that moment to tell me how many people he knew. It all felt very calculated. He kept pressing the job opportunity, always describing the general area, the outskirts of the city, but never the name. He told me to follow him after work so he could get me hired on the spot. I told him my car was being repaired and my sister was picking me up. He would not accept that. He said I should just ride with him directly and that arriving with him would make them hire me immediately. In the middle of all of this, he randomly showed me a white piece of paper, supposedly his license to carry a firearm. Very casual, like it was nothing. I eventually told him yes, just to get him to leave. The moment he was gone, I went to the back and searched for the company name he had finally given me. Nothing. No factory. No business. Nothing. When my shift ended, my sister picked me up from the side of the building. As we drove away, he had come back. He was parked near the location, just around the corner, waiting. I never saw him again. I have deeply regretted not reporting this. I hope that my silence did not allow him to hurt anyone else. He had a license to carry. He had a location that did not exist. He came back to wait. The next story could have ended the same way, for two people who almost got into a stranger's truck. My husband and I think we dodged a serial killer. 2 years ago, my husband and I bought a farm and moved to a small town in Appalachia. We went to our local farm supply store to buy a propane tank. While we were in the checkout line, a man in his late 50s walked in, stared at us, grabbed a random item off a nearby shelf, then came back and stood directly behind us in line. He stood so close I could feel his breath on the back of my neck. I was uncomfortable, but I figured it was just small-town friendliness. So I turned, smiled, said good morning, hoping he would take the hint and give us a little space. He did not. He started talking. First it was pleasant, the weather is getting cold, this line is taking forever, mentioning that he had to pick up his great-aunt from the airport in 2 hours. Then it got more intrusive. Where are you from? Where are you living now? How old are you? My husband and I were in our late 20s, but could have easily passed for 21. When it was our turn at the register, I said, "Have a good day," and stepped forward to pay. As the cashier began explaining their propane pricing, the man started to lose it. He began yelling at the 17-year-old kid working the register, saying he could not believe they were charging us so much, that we were a young couple and deserved a discount. On and on, cursing under his breath. Then he turned to us again. "Hey, I have a 100-pound tank at my house I am not using. I will let you have it for free. You just need to come with me." My husband thanked him and declined. He said, "Are you sure? My house is only 20 minutes from here. I could even give you 2 tanks." My husband declined again. Then he added, "We have to do it now though, because I have to get to the airport and leave town in 2 hours. That was a slip. We did not catch it until later." I told him no thank you, more firmly this time. He dropped his items and stormed out. When we went outside to get our tank filled, he pulled up in his pickup truck right next to the filling station. He got out and started again. "You should really get a second tank. And then, if you do not both want to come, just one of you ride with me, and the other can meet us there." I said no thank you, we are good. He said, "Come on, it's a small town, it's safe. I would never hurt such a lovely young couple." At that point, the outdoor employee walked out and told him to leave and to stop bothering us. He got into his truck, which had no license plate, and drove off. A while later, while we were getting our tank filled again, the employee who works the propane area asked us about that day. He told us that man comes around in the winters, when things are quiet. And he only ever approaches young couples. He had no license plate. He had a 2-hour window, and he only ever came back in winter. The last story tonight has been building for 7 years, and what was found on that computer changed everything. Let's not meet again, Gabriel, or Mark, or Carl. This happened between 2013 and 2020. When I was 16, I played a lot of League of Legends. That is how I met Gabriel. He lived in a nearby city, but we had a mutual friend, Valerie, who was my age and from my neighborhood. We started chatting online and playing together. Eventually, Valerie invited me to her birthday party. Gabriel was there. We clicked easily, but at some point during the night, he tried to get me alone in a dark room. I said no, reminded him I had a boyfriend, and that was that. Over time, he became more invested in my life. I did not have many friends, so he became my closest one. He visited often, stayed at my house, we talked constantly. It felt like a real friendship. Looking back, the shift was so gradual, I barely noticed it happening. It really began in 2016, right after my mother passed away. Gabriel started accidentally touching me. He greeted me with kisses too close to my mouth. His compliments became twisted. Things like, "You are so beautiful, if only you lost a little weight." He manipulated me into believing my partners were terrible, that my friends secretly hated me. He even made bets with people about how long my relationships would last, before my partners left me. In 2019, I finally moved out on my own. I invited him over to help set up the apartment. When he was about to leave, he grabbed my face hard and tried to kiss me. I pulled away, but he held me so tightly, I had to duck under his arm to break free. We stared at each other in silence. Then he left. He later apologized, and because he was my only friend, I forgave him a few weeks later. I should not have. Then came the pandemic. He happened to be staying at a friend's place just a few blocks from my apartment. He asked for help dyeing his hair, so I went over. I met his group of friends there. We bonded instantly. Board game nights, gaming sessions, late-night conversations. Gabriel did not like that. He started getting upset that I was spending time with them instead of only him. One of the guys told me Gabriel had forced him to show their private messages just to make sure nothing was happening between us. Then something changed in his face. His eyes looked different, darker. His behavior became erratic. He told me he had multiple personalities. One was Mark, who attempted to touch me several times and in some ways abused me. The other was Carl, a sleazy, overconfident alter ego he would slip into without warning. One night, as Mark, he told a story about meeting a woman at a bus stop in the middle of the night. The way he described it sounded deeply wrong. What kind of woman would do that willingly? Was he lying, bragging, or had he taken advantage of someone? Things continued to escalate. He claimed he was planning to get euthanized for depression, which is not legal in my country. He accused me of stealing his mother's credit card, a woman I have never even met, in a city I have never been to. Then one night, I had an emergency and asked if he could watch my dog. He agreed. When I came back the following morning, everything looked clean. He said hello, how are you, and left. But his Facebook account was still open on my computer. Something told me to look. He was messaging a mutual friend, calling me a slut, complaining that I gave attention to everyone but him, and that the least I could do was sleep with him. I found a photo he had sent to his friend, a clear photo of the outside of my house at night. It was sent at 4:53 in the morning. I found messages to dozens of women where he had used my personal trauma to gain their sympathy. He had told everyone my business, and then I found a conversation with a girl we both knew. He had told her that we were in a long-term relationship, that I had cheated on him and then apologized, that we lived together, that I was toxic and manipulative. I reached out to her. She told me she had always found it strange that he claimed we were together, but had never posted a single photo of us. Then she told me something that stopped me cold. Once, years earlier, he had used her phone and sent her own private photos to himself while she was in the shower. She only realized because he forgot to delete the sent message. That is when I knew he had done the same to me. There was a folder on my phone that had been opened, one I never access on my own. That folder had a password. I cut him off completely, blocked him everywhere, told every mutual friend. I even messaged him one last time to explain exactly why I never wanted to hear from him again. A year later, he messaged me from a new account. It started as an apology and quickly turned into blame. He said I had ruined his life, that I should be proud for pushing him into depression, that I had lied about not being in a relationship with him, and that he loved me. I blocked him again. I have not heard from him since. Gabriel, Mark, Carl, whatever name you are going by now. Let us not meet again. 9 stories. 9 moments where someone's instinct told them something was wrong, and they were right every single time. Trust that feeling. It exists for a reason, and it has saved more lives than we will ever know. If you made it to the end, you already know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. New stories every week. We will see you in the next one, if you dare.